Well, welcome, gentlemen. It's good to see you again. Brian, hope you enjoyed your weekend in Las Vegas.
I did. Thank you for asking. I barely made it back, but we're
Make
here.
sure you self-quarantine for 14 days just in case.
Well, I was out in 114-degree weather, so I think it killed the virus.
Well, apparently that's what people have been saying, but the case count keeps going up.
Yeah, well, I talked to a guy from Kaiser. He said we're all good.
In regards to that, we've been talking about the risk or the danger of rising taxes for many years now, but now it's becoming more and more of a pressing issue, especially in regards to the upcoming elections. So today we wanted to take some time to talk about the implications of the 2020 elections and how that may affect rising tax rates and affect people's retirement income or their legacy planning or inheritance that they'd like to pass on to their kids or their heirs. Lots of people are weighing in, and I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on some of the comments that we're hearing in the news and online. First, we're going to talk about Ray Dalio. He's the Bridgewater Associate Chairman, and this is what he had to say. He said, the U.S. will have little choice but to raise taxes in the coming years to offset its mounting liabilities and debt. The national debt, pensions, liabilities, and healthcare liabilities will ultimately have to result in higher taxes since defaulting isn't an option. Let's go to Ed first.
So yeah, we've been talking about tax rates rising, and the number that we usually use is somewhere around 6, 7, maybe 10 years. Now, that's not even taking into consideration the fact that, if Trump gets reelected, the existing tax reform will expire in 2026. So we know it's guaranteed to go up then. Now, these comments, though, I think are pointed more toward the fact that if Joe Biden wins the election. Now, politics aside, he's come out and said that his intention is to dramatically raise taxes. In fact, to the tune of about $4 trillion, which is pretty crazy. Now, how does he intend to achieve that? He says he wants to do away with Trump's tax reform, which would have a lot of ill effects. He also wants to raise capital gains rates. I mean, we don't know where this is going to stop, but we do know that it's going to happen eventually. And the reason for that is we started off the year with about 22 trillion in debt. And, I heard a commentator say that we're going to add 3 trillion. And I think most experts and most economists would agree that it's probably going to be closer to 4 or 5 trillion in just 1 year, which is unsustainable. So we know tax rates are going to have to go up. I think from our teachings that 6 or 7 to 10 years is dependent on economic performance. So when we have a year like this, I just see that moving that timeline up, regardless of who is in office.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ed. And we've been really referring to David Walker, who for the last 2 decades has been warning Americans that when the government starts exceeding 1 trillion per year in deficit spending, that tax rates would be forced to go up, or they would accelerate and reach a $53 trillion level. And Brian, can you help explain what is the problem with that number?
Yeah, so 53 trillion is that magic number where if all things stay the same, the interest rate on that debt stays the same, and our taxes stay the same. Once we reach that level, the interest to service that debt will wipe out all of our tax revenue. So that basically means we have nothing left to pay for all of the other programs that our federal government offers us.
Yeah, Brian,
that's at today's tax rates.
Correct. That's today's tax rates and today's interest rate.
That's right, Ed. And you had mentioned that today we've not only exceeded that 1 trillion in regular deficit spending, but if you add all the stimulus on it, it's closer to 4 times that amount. So, gentlemen, what are we looking at? Best case, worst case scenario of rising tax rates if Biden gets elected and he flips the Senate uh, versus Trump staying in office? What are we looking at, Brian?
Well, first I just want to say we're kind of hitting a double whammy right now because not only is our government spending a lot of money, but we have a lot of people unemployed. So we are losing out on revenue, tax revenue. And, a lot of these, like the 10% penalty, taking money out of your 401k, that's been waived. RMDs have been waived. I know those don't sound like huge numbers, but they add up over time. So when you are running a business and you have less revenue coming in and your expenses have increased, well, you're just going to add on to that debt that much quicker. So if we look at the two candidates that we have, you have Donald Trump, who's been in for 3 years now, almost 4 years. He's done a lot, whether you like him or not. I mean, he has done a lot for this economy. We've had the best economy ever. He's lowered taxes for everybody. It has allowed people to actually earn more money and spend more money, which helps the economy. And so he's helped every class. Well, now we have Joe Biden who wants to come in. And right now, I mean, what's this, his third time trying to become a president? And before we're even, doing all of the campaigning and all that, he's coming out saying, I'm going to raise taxes on you guys. Not only that, it's going to dramatically hurt the lower income individuals. So, there's a lot of things he's taken away or that he's proposing in his new tax bill to take away from the lower income earners. And I thought the Democratic Party was the party that helps those low income people. So,
it's interesting, Brian. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I think one of those unintended consequences of him trying to eliminate the Trump tax reform, from 2018, and will actually reinstate the Obamacare tax mandate, which will essentially hit the vast majority of wage earners who are under $60,000 with a bill of between $800 and close to $2,100, which was wiped out through the tax reform. So, exactly. I mean, it's one of these things where it kills me when people make statements not necessarily fully realizing the incredible impact and the breadth of the impact that it can have on an economy.
But also, there are additional taxes that we're not thinking about right now. I believe it's on California, Proposition 15, where they're actually trying to hide the repeal of Prop, forgive me if I'm wrong, Prop 13, where
Prop 13. Yeah.
Prop 13, well, they're trying to unravel it. And the very first step, as I read today, was that they're going to, if Prop 15 passes, they're going to step up cost basis for commercial real estate, which many people fear is the first step towards increasing or stepping up cost basis for all real estate.
Robert, it's not actually it's not just real estate that I think is falling in the crosshairs here. That is, in my mind, that is the first step, because what do they want to do? They want to remove some of those advantages. And, I get some people may agree with that, but then the question is, where does it also end? Does it end with our property taxes in California, which are some of the highest in the nation, but are somewhat limited because they're only allowed to raise it a certain amount per year? Maybe they decide to actually, start raising our property taxes exactly the same amount that property appreciates. I can tell you there'll be a lot of people that are able to afford homes in California that won't be able to afford them anymore. There's going to be a lot of people, you mentioned the commercial property, a lot of people that are renting that will no longer be able to afford their rent because these property managers, it won't make financial sense. There won't be the cash flow and the profitability in some of these buildings at the current rental rates. And if they're restricted to the amount that they can raise rent, they're just going to sell these buildings. Once they sell the buildings, now a new owner comes in and they can establish new rental rates as the new owner. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that won't be able to afford it. So the question is, where does it end?
Right.
Really?
And this is why we do these videos, because most people don't take the time to actually read the legislation, let alone Congress. How many congressmen actually read the entire bill? Or for that matter, how many pages was the spending bill last year? And you think that Congress had enough time to read every page?
Oh, yeah.
And so they stuff all kinds of things in legislation and then put a nice fancy title on it to make it sound like it's good for the people. So I appreciate you guys unpacking some of these issues so we can better understand these issues and make better educated decisions. But Brian, I wanted to get your opinion on this next quote, and it's from Leon Cooperman, who is the founder of the hedge firm Omega Advisors. He's worth $3.2 billion, and economically, he knows wherever he speaks, he says that taxes are on the way up post-crisis. When he says post-crisis, obviously he's talking about COVID-19, and he says regardless of who wins in November, taxes have to go up. He says, here's the reason. We have a leftward shift in our country, and no matter who wins the presidency in November, the tax revamps will likely change capitalism forever. That's a pretty bold statement. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. We've had a lot of government interaction in our stock market. They've been injecting themselves into the stock market. They've been, injecting themselves into free enterprise. And my saying has always been, let free enterprise take care of itself. Let the stock market take care of itself, because once the government starts injecting money in there to keep people from losing and going down, well, it takes away from the upside. You got to get something for it. And clients of ours are very familiar with this. When we introduce the LIRP to them, that's that life insurance retirement plan that we use as a piece of a portfolio. The reason we use that is because it's mirroring what the government is doing to the stock market. And so we have some downside protection. Maybe you have a 0 or a 1% guarantee, but in exchange for that, you give up some of the upper end, right? So you might be capped at 10, 11, 12%. So ultimately, that's what the government is doing to our stock market, whether they realize it or not. That's what's happening. So it's really changing what we know as the market, because we've started to see, I think, since 2008, when we had quantitative easing, a lot of the fundamental principles of the market and how it responds to certain things have been changing. And I think this is a direct result of that and the government intervention.
So the most important question for today really is, gentlemen, what can we do as a consumer? So speaking to our audience, what can they do to protect themselves if we're looking at worst case scenario, a year or two, best case scenario, we talked specifically 2026. What can people do to protect themselves from the inevitable rising taxes?
Well, we can be a broken record and say, convert, 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 right? Get that money into tax free. However you can do it, and don't wait, because now's the time. And if taxes go up next year, I guarantee you're going to be kicking yourself saying, man, I wish I would have done something. And with this CARES Act and all these restrictions that have been taken away, that's even more reason to convert. I mean, I don't know why you would not want to convert right now.
Ed, final word.
what we're talking about, the election is months away. So realistically, what is it? It is conversions. It is getting as much as we can into that tax-free bucket. But more so, what is it? It's we need to start now. The longer we wait, the less time we have, and the more we're going to end up paying in taxes, even at this lower rate, to try to get it into that tax-free, or that tax-free bucket, so that we never have to pay taxes again.
Yeah, and Brian, can you tell us a little bit about the resources that you have, or the webinars that you teach that may be able to help people better understand this strategy?
Sure. So we have a taxes in retirement webinar that we do almost, well, monthly. We have Social Security webinars that can help you in your tax planning in retirement. We have estate planning webinars. So there's a lot of resources out there. You can find all of that stuff on our website. We have an events tab on there where you can see when we will be sharing those webinars or doing those live webinars. One day things might open up and we might do some live workshops, because you guys both know that's the part I love.
And I do believe that you guys include that in your taxes in retirement webinar. I'll also include a link below this YouTube video to the resources that Brian mentioned to make it more accessible for you. But guys, I want to thank you again, taking the time out each week, and hopefully we can help keep warning people about what may be coming down the road and what they can do to protect their families, their futures, and their legacy from being decimated by the unexpected, whether it's market volatility or taxation. But it's always great to have you guys, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thanks, Robert. Always a pleasure.